high blood pressure does not equal heart disease. High blood pressure is an effect of heart disease. So people think if they have high blood pressure, then they have heart disease, but it's actually the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, very often. And sometimes what Cheryl's saying is if you have heart disease, then you're likely to get high blood pressure. Or the same thing that's causing your heart disease also causes your blood pressure to be high. But that concept that we were given in medical school that because you have high blood pressure, you get heart disease is not true at all. That is absolutely not true. In fact, you can have high blood pressure for years and not have heart disease.
We're going live. See, that sometimes it's trial by fire. That's how you learn. You just start and you didn't even know you started. You guys, we are so excited. Episode 1, brand new webinar. This is going to be so good. So we are talking about all things healthy heart, and we have quite a few of you joining already, which is amazing. I'm curious to know, you can comment in the chat, how many of you have joined a webinar with us previously? Were you on our diabetes fixed blood sugar webinar? Is that how you found us? Or is this brand new and you have no idea who I am or who Dr. Saunders is or Cheryl?
You know what's interesting? If I can share with you. So one of my patients who was in this morning was on the diabetes webinar. And we had to we went through all of her tests and everything. She doesn't have diabetes. She doesn't have insulin resistance. That's not her issue. And so I think it's so good that we have a different webinar that's not focused on diabetes, because she's like saying, oh, I got to cut out the carbs and I can't eat fruit and I can't do this. I'm like, no, that's not your thing. You need to eat fruit. You need to eat these things because you need a lot of fiber for your heart. And so it's an entirely different focus. And so that's why this webinar is going to be awesome, as opposed to the diabetes webinar, which is awesome for people with diabetes, but doesn't always apply to people who don't have diabetes. And so this is going to be more generally, more broadly applicable.
Yes. And it is a big change, guys. So if you've been hanging out on that diabetes webinar, you're in for a treat. This is different. And I'm really curious to hear what things Dr. Saunders would recommend for someone who maybe does have type 2, but also wants a healthy heart. How do we do them both? How do we become overall healthy? What does that mean? What do we eat? Isn't that what we all want to know? What do we get to eat? And if you know Dr. Saunders, I'm sure he's going to throw around that fasting word again. So we'll see. It's going to be a treat. What I would like to do to get started, first of all, welcome again. There is a chat feature you can see where you can chat with each other. There is also a Q&A feature if you're joining us on Zoom, where you can type your questions and we'll do our best to answer those. If you're on YouTube, hello. You're catching the replay, but we'll still do our best to answer some questions, maybe in the comments there. Sign up for this webinar at bartonwebinar.com. We have 2 webinars each week now, one diabetes focused, primarily type 2, and the other one is healthy heart. And so sign up for those. They're free, which is awesome. And Dr. Saunders will answer your questions, and he's going to say, get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for. I'll answer your questions.
But anyway, okay, so that's kind of how this works. If you're joining on Facebook, hello, you can post in the comments. Like I said, we'll do our best to get to as many of the questions as we can, as possible. One thing I want to do actually before we start, I'm changing up the order. I planned an order for this webinar and I'm already changing it, but I want to do some introductions so you know who's going to be here with you each week. Let's start with Cheryl. Cheryl, will you introduce yourself and let us know how you got here and what you do for the Barton team?
So, I've worked with Barton for a long time. I've worked on home cares that work for quite some time, but I'm also involved with our customer service side. So I have an email team and a phone team. So if you have any questions regarding an order that you've placed or an order that you want to place, you can reach out to support@bartonpublishing.com or bartonnutrition.com. I will get help for you, whatever you need. And I come partly as a representative of you because we hear from the customers. So I can answer some of the questions we get by email, send those over to Dr. Scott and see what he says. But I want to represent you, but my mom has heart problems. So I'm happy she's had atrial fibrillation. She's had multiple surgeries. And so I'm here to ask questions on her behalf as well, and just learn about Healthy Heart, because as I was reading through the Healthy Heart Solution Kit, I think everyone needs it, whether you have heart problems or not, really.
One thing that you should know about Cheryl also is she practices what she preaches. So I've known Cheryl since probably 2012 when I first started with Barton Publishing, and this is her world. Like she's into health, she's into fitness, she's into all of the things that we talk about. And so she's not just making stuff up. She really does know. And she's been fun to learn from as well. If you haven't been on a webinar before, my name is Leslie, and my titles have changed a lot. But primarily I would say that I host the webinars. I've been hosting the diabetes webinar for a few years now. And so this is a brand new webinar that I get to help with. And I do a little bit of our copy editing. So I'm going through a lot of the things that we produce and making sure that everything is in the correct voice and all of that kind of stuff. And then a lot of other just kind of odds and ends, I guess, kind of customer focused with Barton Publishing. And so I'm excited to be here because I love learning from Dr. Saunders. For one, I appreciate him as a doctor. He is always learning, and he never will. Sometimes I say this a lot, but sometimes I say, Dr. Saunders, just give me the pill. I just want the pill to make it go away. And he'll say, no, we're going to get to the source. We're going to figure out what's wrong, and we're going to get you healthy. And so I hate that about him, and I love that about him. But that's what you want in someone who's looking after you and wanting to take care of you. You want them to get to the source. That's what he does. And he takes so much joy in that. And so that's why we appreciate him so much, because he knows all this stuff. He can explain it to us in a way that is easy to understand and that makes sense to someone who didn't go to med school. And he can give us a plan, and he works with patients all the time. So enough about Dr. Saunders. I should let him introduce himself and tell us how you came to be here and what your interest is in Healthy Heart and all of that kind of thing.
Okay. So I often introduce myself to my patients when they first come in by starting off, I'm not a real doctor. And by saying that, I mean that, yes, I went to medical school, and yes, I learned, but really my education started after I finished medical school, when I started looking at, well, what are the root causes of illness? I wanted to know the cause, and I was kind of disappointed in my medical education that and I know I shouldn't be disappointed, because if you go to a medical doctor, it's likely you're going to get medicine, right? That's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to write prescriptions for drugs and give you medicine. And I kind of always had the idea that a doctor was a healthcare provider, right? It's like they know all about your health. And now I see things on whatever YouTube, and they bring up a supplement like berberine, and they say, well, ask your doctor. And it's like, the doctor knows nothing about berberine. What the heck? Why would you ask your doctor? Ask your doctor if you need vitamin C. What do doctors know about vitamin C? We were never taught anything about that. So that's why I say I'm not a real doctor. That I don't do those things. I don't prescribe drugs. In fact, I rarely recommend drugs. I have, and I have a prescription pad and I write them. But the idea is to avoid them. And most of the time I'm looking for how to get people off of drugs. So we're going to talk about some things that you will not hear anywhere else. And I will bring you the research, and I'll show you pictures of it, and I'll bring it out and say, okay, this is what the research shows, and this is why your cardiologist is telling you this that goes against the research, and we'll explain all of those things of why it's happening. So we did a separate webinar because heart disease is still the #1 cause of death in the world, in the what do they call it in the I don't want to use the word advanced societies, but the first world they used to call it, and that's what keeps coming to mind. But I was looking for another word. Those who eat junk food and have a surplus of everything, heart disease is still the #1 cause of death. So it's a big thing, and there's a lot of reasons to discuss this. And we wouldn't need this if you could go to your doctor and get good information, but I'm convinced you can't. And so I'm going to show you partly what the good information is, and then the other part is where you can go to get good information.
All right, awesome. I'm noticing some people here in the chat. Mary says, I'm on the diabetes reversal webinar with you. You guys are great. I look forward to this every week. Judy says, I was on the diabetes webinar. Yes, twice a week now. So grateful I found you. So good. Lots of you coming from the diabetes webinar. Some of you are brand new, and we're so excited to have you. Someone, this is their first time, Edward, first time. He had work off today, so he was able to join, which is amazing. One thing I want to mention to you guys also is that on bartonwebinar.com, you'll find a link. This isn't posted yet because this is episode 1, but you will find a link to our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch the replays that you miss. Or if you want to go back and you're like, oh, I really missed that information, or I wish I would have written it down, you will be able to go back and listen. So we do have a YouTube channel where these will be posted. So bartonwebinar.com is kind of your hub for everything. You'll find links to all the things that you may need.
I can post that in the channel. Should I give that link to the channel for everyone?
Perfect. That would be great.
There we go.
Someone says, I'm new to your webinar, looking forward to learning more about heart health. We're new to your seminar too, Stu says. I have no diabetes symptoms, but I can praise the fiber greens as it is like somebody put the Energizer bunny in me. Love it. We'll talk about that. We will be talking about that. My name is Brenda. I've had neuropathy and been in pain for 5 years, and I found your website and wanted to try the Nervala, but started with, I think, fiber greens. Our story is long, and we are just glad we found you. Oh, you guys, this is so great. I love this.
And Brenda, sorry. I sent Brenda a link for Nervala in straight to her. So check your chat. Brenda.
Hey. Okay. Okay, Cheryl, I'm going to have you, can you repost those to everyone? It just sent to host and panelists.
Oh, yes, I can, to everyone. Sorry about that. Wrong.
No problem.
Here we go. All right. Got it.
Yay. Okay. Let's go ahead and do this. Dr. Saunders, would you mind giving us a disclaimer and then tell us what heart disease is and why it matters?
Okay. So why do we need a disclaimer? We need a disclaimer because for legal reasons, and to make it very clear also that I'm not your doctor, that I'm not giving you personal advice, that's not what this is about. This is an educational seminar of general information. And even when you ask a personal question and you say, well, I have my cholesterol is high and it's this number and this number and that number and that number. When I give an answer, I'm going to give an answer for a general audience because I have hundreds of people, even thousands of people watching this. And so I want to give a general answer to say, well, in that sort of a situation, this is what would be the best thing to do. And that's the advantage of doing the webinar is in real time, we can have a discussion, so to speak, of you as a group and then me, and give you answers to questions that you're not going to be able to find in the book very easily. And looking online, you're going to find a million websites with contradictions and everything. So I can distill that down and help you with that, hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's cutting out just a little bit, Dr. Saunders. Is it for you, Cheryl?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very fuzzy.
Yeah, and a little bit blurry. So where are you coming from today, Dr. Saunders?
I'm in Solvang.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Saunders travels. What is it? One day a week you go to Solvang?
Yeah, right? 1 day a week. I live near Solvang, so
okay.
That's my home, and then I travel to Santa Barbara or Goleta to see patients there.
Okay. Okay, so we'll kind of watch that. I'm not sure why it's blurry, but I'm looking at it on Facebook and it doesn't look quite as bad, which is interesting. Let's dive in. We're going to talk about, first of all, let me just show you here really quick. This is our Healthy Heart Solution Kit. And many of the conversations that we are going to have on these webinars will revolve around this. Now, this is something that Dr. Saunders helped to write. This is one of our newest products, isn't it? This is probably, yeah. And we've had so many people who have been thankful for this. But when people meet with Dr. Saunders in his office, the information that you're finding in this book is what he recommends for his patients. And so we decided, you know what, let's take that information and make it way cheaper and put it in a book that you can get in a matter of 2 minutes if you would like the PDF version online. Or if you want the hard copy, you can pay a little extra and get the hard copy too. But this thing is chock full of so many amazing things. I have all my little Post-it notes for things that I want to make sure that we mention to you guys. But if you're interested in that, that is available at bartonwebinar.com or Barton Nutrition. We have a couple different sites. I'm just going to tell you, we have a coupon code for that. Webinar 25 will save you 25% on all of these things. And I believe this is, Cheryl, how much is this? If someone wanted to buy the PDF version of this, what would the price be?
PDF version is $19.97. The print version is $19.95. Now there is a shipping fee, $9.95. Online, we offer only digital or digital and print together. So if you call us, you can get the print alone.
Okay.
But $9.95 shipping for the States, $24.95 for international shipping. But okay. $19.95 is get it right in your hands.
Perfect. Or get the digital version, right? Or like she said, get the digital version right away. But we're going to dig into some of this. We're going to give you an overview of what this is, talk about why it's important, and all of that. So let's start. Dr. Saunders, let's talk about heart disease. Now, I put a little Post-it in here because we go in depth in this, but can you tell us more about heart disease and talk to us about if we were to go to if we were in the medical community, what would they recommend to check to see if we had heart disease?
So the first thing that they do is risk factors for heart disease. So they look at what are the risk factors, and we're told that there are certain risk factors, and the big ones being high blood pressure and cholesterol. So they'll check your blood pressure, they'll check your cholesterol levels, a lipid panel. And to see if you have risk for heart disease. Those are tiny risks. They're not real risks. They're actually symptoms of other risks and other kinds of issues. So there are some real reasons why vascular disease happens, and heart disease is just one part of vascular disease. Vascular disease can happen anywhere in the body, and usually when somebody has heart disease, they'll have blood vessel problems all over the body. And so why do the blood vessels get clogged? Why do they get cholesterol deposits and calcium deposits and hardening and all of that? Those are the kinds of things that we want to deal with. So the first thing is when you go to a doctor, they're going to look at risk factors. But the ones that they look at are not the ones that are the most useful. So over time, we're going to be discussing all of the real risk factors that you have.
Okay. One thing that I was reading in our diabetes solution kit was how you were talking about, when they go in, they may recommend some different protocols, doing stress tests, checking to see if you have difficulty breathing, doing all of these things. And then they may recommend bypass surgery. What is bypass surgery exactly?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if you have clogging of the arteries, if you have chest pain, especially chest pain with exercise or walking or something, then they will look into your blood vessels by putting a catheter in, injecting a dye, to see how big your blood vessels are. And if they're really narrowed, then they'll say, or like almost gone, then they'll recommend a bypass. A bypass is they take veins out of your legs, and then they stitch them into the artery, the good part, and bypass the bad part onto the other side and put the vein. So instead of the blood going through where all of the atherosclerosis is, where the clogging is, it goes around it and gets to the heart. And what that does is allow more blood flow to an area that's diminished in blood flow because there's some clogging.
Is that a long-term solution?
No, not a long-term solution. In fact, statistically speaking, when all of the studies that have been done say it pretty much whether you do it or don't do it, you're about in the same boat. And you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't change your length of life. No, it doesn't change your length of life. You don't live longer because you get a bypass and bypass those areas that are clogged. What happens is you have a certain number of people who die from the surgery or are impaired or have strokes and have such problems from the surgery. And then you have, if you don't do the surgery, you have a certain number of people who die from the heart disease and have strokes and whatever. So, but what's really weird is it kind of balances out. Like your damage from the surgery is about equivalent from your damage of people who don't have the surgery. And so overall, it leads to about the same amount of length of life, whether you have the surgery or not.
Interesting. And what you said earlier is that
interesting.
That high blood pressure does not, and this is what you say in the book, high blood pressure does not equal heart disease. High blood pressure is an effect of heart disease. So people think if they have high blood pressure, then they have heart disease, but it's actually the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah, very often. And sometimes what Cheryl's saying is if you have heart disease, then you're likely to get high blood pressure, or the same thing that's causing your heart disease also causes your blood pressure to be high. But that concept that we were given in medical school that because you have high blood pressure, you get heart disease is not true at all. That is absolutely not true. In fact, you can have high blood pressure for years and not have heart disease. There isn't a good correlation at all because high blood pressure happens for a lot of different reasons. In fact, if you look it up, there are over 300 different health problems that are associated with high blood pressure. So anything from genetic diseases, problems to vascular diseases, to hormone problems, to energy production problems, to toxicities of all kinds, a lot of different toxicities, deficiencies of nutrients of various kinds, inflammatory conditions like even bowel diseases and all kinds. You just name it, and practically, high blood pressure. That causes high blood pressure. High blood pressure is everywhere, and so that's why it's not specifically related to heart disease. But if you have inflamed blood vessels and hardening of the arteries, you're going to have heart disease, and you're also going to have high blood pressure.
Wow, very interesting. I think we kind of lost him for a minute there, and he's back. Okay. We can still hear you, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So in our discussions, when working on this Healthy Heart Solution Kit, Dr. Saunders spends a lot of time researching things. And one thing that I love that he does is he tries different, it seems like every year we see him, he's trying a new eating plan. So he'll do something for an entire year and he'll be strict about it. And he is a practice what he preaches kind of guy. He doesn't just tell everyone to go do something. He probably tries it first before he even recommends it. And out of a lot of that, I believe this Healthy Heart Solution Kit really was formed. And so lots of research and lots of trial by you yourself. I think some of it even has come from, and not that you weren't healthy, but I do know there's some information about eating high fiber in here. And I believe Dr. Saunders may have done that for at least a year. So I just want to read this kind of our goals in the Healthy Heart Solution Kit, why this was created. Number one, the goal from Barton Publishing was to help all of you reverse and prevent heart disease. That was our number one goal when creating this. Our second goal was to provide simple step-by-step instructions that will actually work. Number 3, our commitment is to make this available and easy for everyone. And number 4, our sacrifice is to provide service and information beyond the average or minimum. And so those are our goals with this. We really want to see lives changed. And unfortunately, a lot of the feedback that we're getting from a lot of you is that the information in here is not what you were told when you went to get help. When you weren't getting better, you weren't told this information. And so we're praying that this changes your life. And there's so much good information in this. I've really enjoyed reading through this and learning from Dr. Saunders, and I'm excited to share that with you. So anything you guys want to share right now?
I was going to say, as I was reading through it, I love the fact that it talked about sort of your step-by-step plan and getting started. And one of the things that it says was like, commit to yourself, commit to telling others, and share what you're doing, share your successes. That's why we measure it. And like I've heard, if you tell that someone something 3 times, then it makes it official kind of in your brain. So whatever you're doing, as we start this Healthy Heart webinar, share it with others. We're not saying just share the webinar, share your success, share your troubles, because just like Leslie and I were talking about before we started, we're better together. So we want to support you, support each other, share what you're doing, what's helping, and get the help you need. We want to help you when we can, and from others. Maybe you'll get it from someone else, but yes, share what you're doing.
Yes. And you can do that. Also, we have a Facebook group called Barton Webinar. Join that if you're on Facebook. Post, ask questions, answer other people's questions. We want that to be kind of a hub where you guys can do that during the week, when you're not, or on the weekend when you're not on this webinar. And you guys are doing the hard work. You can help each other with this. So if you're familiar with our Diabetes Solution Kit, you know that we broke that into 3 phases. Well, we did the same thing for the Healthy Heart Solution Kit. And I just want to go over those phases a little bit so you know what you can expect in that. And on this webinar, we're focusing heavily on this so that you know where a lot of our information comes from. In the upcoming webinars, we're going to go more in depth on some of the topics that are covered in here, what Dr. Saunders has found in his latest research with both patients and patients all around the world, and what we're finding. Cheryl gets to hear from customers every day what is working, what isn't working, what they like, what they don't like, and so we're going to share all of that with you guys. Phase 1, I'm going to just read the goal of phase 1 is to significantly reduce heart damaging stress in your life and begin to implement other heart healthy lifestyle changes. Now, I saw there was a question on here from someone. Bill asked, how long does it take to notice a difference when you're trying to get your heart healthy? And we have on here, phase 1 will take 4 to 6 weeks. But it also is up to you and how your mind and your body respond to the prescribed changes. Now, Dr. Saunders, can you talk to us a little bit about phase 1? And what really do you think is the number one thing that people struggle with?
The stress part, phase 1 is, people say, research is done and questions are asked of people, and they say, what's the hardest thing? And changing diet is really hard. In fact, people said they were more likely to change their religion than their diet. That's how ingrained their needs are for food. So we talk about that, a diet, what kinds of things you eat and everything. But we kind of make that easy. The hardest thing that people have to deal with is stress. And the stressors of life is stressful. You can't avoid stress. The process of avoiding stress causes more stress. And so, you're stuck in this terribly stressful situation. And so we talk about that a lot, and we discuss why it's important and how you deal with stress and how you're going to have stress. In fact, in many ways, you want to have stress. So if you are creating your own stress, you go, I'm going to go work out at the gym. What are you doing? You're stressing your muscles. You're going out, you're lifting weight, and you're not even doing anything. You're not getting anything done. That's what's always bugged me about treadmills, right? You're walking, and you're not going anywhere. You're walking, and you don't get anywhere. at least if I go for a hike with my son, then I get somewhere. I get up the mountain, I get to look over the ocean, and then I can climb back down the mountain. Whereas if you're waiting for stress to happen, or if you're not actively pursuing stress in your life, whether that is relationships, trying to improve relationships, or business, trying to do well in your business and learn more and progress in that way, to grow, or physically in any area of life, if you're actively pursuing growth, you're going to create stress in your life. And guess what? That's called eustress, or good stress. So we talk about these things. The hardest thing to deal with is that if you don't cause stress in your life, then it's going to come to you automatically. And that's where the heart disease happens.
Another question that we get a lot that I have heard people ask, and you can just give this in general terms, what is the best way to eat to have a healthy heart?
Okay, that's a good question. And you know what? The research is clear for 20 plus years, from Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Esselstyn, Dr. McDougall, and there's no other research that's been shown to do anything different. And that is a very high fiber diet. In fact, for people reversing heart disease, a high fiber, low fat diet. I like the story of President or ex-President Bill Clinton. He had cardiac bypass surgery, and so he says, okay, I'm okay. I can get around. I don't have chest pain anymore. That's a good thing. Then 4 or 5 years later, he starts getting chest pain. He goes back, and they say, oh, looks like we're going to have to repeat the surgery. He's like, what? You didn't do it right the first time? They go, nah, and they get blocked up again. Now, so that always happens. He's like, there is no way I'm going through that surgery again. That was awful. That was horrible. I'm not doing it. So they said, well, there's nothing else. You can't do anything else. You have to bypass those because they're blocked off. You got to put a new one in. And he's like, no, there's got to be something else. So he actually knew somebody who knew somebody who knew Dr. Esselstyn. And so he went on the Esselstyn diet. And guess what? If you've ever seen the difference between, Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton to ex-President Bill Clinton, there's a big weight difference. And not only a weight difference, he's more active and alert and doing much better because he just did the diet. And the diet really is a very low fat, very high fiber diet. So, and the key really is the high fiber diet.
I'm going to show you in this solution kit, the team put together some of their favorite high fiber diet recipes. I know Cheryl has got like a black bean cake in there. Is that right? A black bean chocolate cake? Is that what it is?
Yes, it is. It's amazing. You would never guess it's gluten-free, but it's full of black beans. It's amazing. I made it for my husband. He was shocked that I was going to make it, and then he loved it. And then he requests it again for his birthday. It is so good.
Didn't you make it for us one time?
I did.
I was going to say, I remember this, and it was good. You never would have guessed. But there are so many recipes. Noodle-free chicken pad thai, chili cheese, black bean enchiladas. Like, there's so many good recipes in here to give you a start. If this is a new way of eating for you, you're going to be happy with the recipes in here. So that's kind of the beauty of these, is you get to kind of make them your own. And also the beauty of the internet, you can Google high fiber recipes. But I know Dr. Saunders talks a lot about what does that really mean? How do you determine how much fiber is in something? How much fiber do I actually need? And that's all in this. And I'm going to give you a quick rundown because time's already flying by. Yeah. Some of the things that we talk about, just even in phase 1, fasting, exercise, stress, the 6-10-8 reset. I just added reset. Actually, that wasn't a part of it. That's something else, but it's kind of the same. The high fiber, low fat diet, all of those things are addressed just even in phase 1. And so what we're going to do is in these upcoming webinars is we're going to do a deep dive into these things. We want to make sure that you're understanding them, why you're doing them, why they're important, etc. So we have a lot of good webinars that will be coming up. And that's just phase 1. We don't even know what he says in phase 2 and phase 3 for us. Who knows, right? So it's all good. It's going to be very fun. One other thing that I wanted to go through, I want to talk a little bit more about the risk factors for heart disease. And if I look, I wrote this down. I wanted to go over them. I have them on page 24 in this book. Okay, so we talked about stress. That was a big one. What about low magnesium? That was something that was a factor. What does that mean? And why does low magnesium, why is that important?
Oh my gosh, it is so important. So over 300 different enzymes in your body require magnesium to function properly. And most of those have to do with your energy production. So your mitochondrial enzymes, many of them require magnesium or they don't function. And if they don't function, then you don't make energy efficiently. And if you're not making energy efficiently, then things are breaking down because life is all about energy. As soon as you take the energy out, it's gone. Why do people die when you cut off their oxygen supply? They just stop making energy. That's what it's all about. And guess what? Magnesium is one of those, is as important as oxygen in making the energy in your body. If you take the magnesium out of your body, you will die faster than if you take the oxygen out of your body, because nothing will work. Whereas oxygen, you actually have mechanisms for anoxic respiration where you don't have to use oxygen. You're not going to get enough and you're going to die eventually. But people can be without oxygen for minutes, 6 minutes is kind of an average, but there have been cases of people for hours without oxygen and are brought back to life. But without magnesium, you're dead. It's so important for making energy. And here's the key with magnesium. We're going to talk about this. We're going to probably do a whole webinar on this. And that is, magnesium is a common deficiency, that there are many people deficient in magnesium. Why? Because we don't have a staple food that is high in magnesium. So if we had like in some areas, they eat beans, they eat beans like every day. And guess what? Beans are high in magnesium. Or anything green. And our biggest green is this iceberg lettuce, which is has very little of magnesium in it. So the darker the green, the more magnesium there is, because the chlorophyll molecule. Oh man, when we talk about this, you'd just be amazed at how this works. The chlorophyll molecule requires magnesium to function, and that's what makes it green. So anything green, and our iceberg lettuce is very light green, which means it has very little magnesium in it. And so that's our green salad, right? It's this light green lettuce. Whereas if you're eating like kale and chard and spinach, then you're getting a lot more magnesium in that. It's just not a staple food for us. We don't have anything that's a staple. Well, one thing that would be is wheat, if it was whole wheat, but you can hardly find whole wheat anywhere because the bran and the germ are taken out. They don't have magnesium anymore. So now you have this wonderful white bread. People eat their sourdough bread and all this, the specialty breads, but it's white flour and it doesn't have magnesium in it. Meat doesn't have magnesium in it, small amounts. Nothing high in magnesium is a staple food in an American diet. So we are commonly deficient in magnesium, and this is a big deal. And gosh, I have more details to give. And when we do our webinar on it, it's going to be very interesting.
We do have a supplement that's a magnesium spray. I think it's one of my favorite. I use it before I go to sleep. Helps me sleep better. I know Jill loves it too. Magnesium,
yes, very good.
Great.
I have it sitting by my bed. Actually, I use it every night too. Mm-hmm. You can find that at bartonnutrition.com. And again, code webinar25 will save you 25%. But we'll go more in depth into that too. And there's just so much good stuff that we're going to talk about. I'm excited about this. Lots of good webinars. Oh, we have so many questions. Okay, a couple other things that we're going to discuss at some point too. Some of the other risk factors, stress. These are really cool. Well, it's not really cool. I shouldn't say that. But some research was done about a lot of different risks or a lot of stressors in your life and how much they impact the body. And it's just amazing when I was reading through this. So stress really does create illnesses. And that's something, you know, I feel like we weren't taught years ago. We didn't know about, but we're becoming more aware of that. And it's important to learn how to manage stress. And so we'll talk about that. We have someone on the team who actually does some breath work sessions. And so we've talked about maybe even bringing her on and doing one of those, which we think would be really good. Mm-hmm. So lots of fun stuff in store, you guys. Some other things, lack of exercise can be a risk factor. Inflammation, which you guys know, we hear that word all the time, right? But we're going to talk about that more in depth. What does that even mean, inflammation? Why do I have it? How do I not have it? And yes. And then metabolic syndrome. What does that mean? Actually, you know what? Real quickly, Dr. Saunders, what is metabolic syndrome? Because we hear that a lot. It's a risk factor, but what is it?
Okay, a syndrome is a definition of a collection of symptoms. And so this syndrome called metabolic syndrome means your metabolism is messed up, but there's specific things. So you have truncal obesity, insulin resistance, high blood sugar, and high cholesterol, and generally high triglycerides as well. So, and it may be hyperglycemia, not necessarily diabetes. So metabolic syndrome is something that we often call pre-diabetes because it has some insulin resistance associated with it. And then the truncal obesity and high cholesterol are part of that. So type 2 diabetes is often like mirrored or related to this metabolic syndrome. And that's really important too, because that constellation of symptoms leads very reliably to heart disease and vascular disease.
It's like a ticking time bomb. It's basically everything is coming against you and something's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. I did see a question come in that I want to address here. This is from Judy, and she is wondering, how do these recipes work with diabetes? So how would we incorporate heart health and type 2 diabetes reversal in a food plan?
Oh, that's a great question. Because if we look at all of the diets that have been proven to reverse heart disease, it might be different from the ideal diabetes plan. And so the diabetes plan that we have is a ketogenic diet. And so we allow fat. You don't have to count fat. And it's high fiber still. You have all the free foods, all the broccoli and cauliflower and spinach and lettuce and cabbage and all that stuff. You eat as much of that as you want. And so those are all free food. So that's the high fiber part. But you're not going to have fruit. You're not going to have any grains, even whole grains, things that are high in carbohydrates. But it does allow for chicken and meat and fish and other high fat kinds of things. So and cheese and stuff like that. So it allows high fat. So that's the diabetes type of diet. Whereas the ideal cardiac diet is different. It's a very high fiber diet but very low in fat. And it was really interesting. I had somebody just the other day came in with a series of questions. He said, wait a minute, you told me that my high fat diet wasn't the cause of my heart disease. He has significant heart disease. His number, we'll talk about a coronary calcium score. We'll talk about that. And not normal is up to like 100 for his age. 400 is high. He was 1200. So he was like way up there. And he was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die any minute. That's not the way it works. He was not going to die any minute, but he did have significant heart disease. He said, is this because he was vegetarian for a long time and then he started eating meat? Is it because I ate meat? No, That wasn't his issue. And this is why we're going to discuss things in more detail in the webinars, is because he had a connective tissue abnormality. He has a genetic problem, a genetic weakness in his connective tissue that causes the blood vessels to not repair properly. And so because they're not repairing, they get scabs on them, and then they get cholesterol on them, and then they get calcium on the cholesterol. And so he develops these areas of atherosclerosis, or hardening of the arteries, because of his connective tissue problem. He doesn't make collagen properly. And that's actually not that uncommon. And the way we found that out is because his aorta was dilated. And so that's called an aortic aneurysm. And it's like, wait a minute, there's something wrong. And that's the atherosclerosis. So the big picture for him was that it wasn't what he was eating that caused the problem. And I suspect that because he was eating a vegetarian diet for 10 years, that he's over 70 and still doing well and functional and doesn't have chest pain, although he has significant heart disease. So the diet isn't always the problem, but in spite of all that, the only way we know to reverse this is to be on this very high fiber, very low fat diet. Why? Well, because in that case, your body has to have cholesterol. You must have it. You don't know, you think cholesterol is your enemy, but it's your best friend. All of your steroid hormones, cortisol, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, pregnenolone, DHEA, they're all made out of cholesterol. Your CoQ10 is made out of cholesterol. Your vitamin D is made out of cholesterol. Every cell in your body requires cholesterol to function. In fact, what I was saying about magnesium, if you take cholesterol out of your body, you die faster than if you take the oxygen out. It's like that important. Your entire brain is made out of cholesterol. Without cholesterol, brain cannot function, zero function. So you need cholesterol. So what happens when you're not eating any? Because meat has cholesterol, right? You're eating some. You stop eating it. What does your body do? Well, number one, you can make it. And number two, you can start using up all those cholesterol deposits in your arteries. And you know what? That's exactly what the body does. And so that's how, like President or ex-President Bill Clinton reversed his heart disease by diet, is the body starts going, oh, okay, I need cholesterol. Where am I going to get it? Oh, look at all that junk in the arteries. I'll just use up that stuff. And starts pulling it out and using it. It's called autophagy. Autophagy means eating yourself. So you're literally eating yourself, but what you're eating are dead cells, dead protein, wastes, deposits, all of the junk that's been built up over years. And so that's why it's a good cleanse too. So that's how your diet, I know that's a long explanation, that the diabetes diet is not going to be the same as the heart healthy diet. But when you go into phase 2 and phase 3 in the diabetes diet, you actually can switch to a heart healthy diet and do very well, decrease your cholesterol and keep your blood sugar normal. So it's not that they're not compatible. It's that phase 1 is so strict that it's a good idea just to stay with that until you have normal blood sugars, and then you can switch over, or you can stay on phase 1. Either way.
So you recommend, if you have diabetes or high blood sugar, do the diabetes solution kit first, at least phase 1, before you go to the healthy heart solution kit.
I think so. I think that, yeah, because that's something that's quickly reversible, whereas healthy heart is like more of a long-term. It's going to take a while to take the deposits out of it, at least a year. I knew one woman who had, I know from her carotid arteries were almost completely blocked, and she completely reversed it, opened them up so that the ultrasound was like, you don't have a carotid artery disease anymore. But it took a whole year.
Wow.
And if you want, while you're doing the diabetes solution kit in phase 1, you can start increasing your fiber. There's nothing wrong with doing that. We have a lot of people, we've been talking about that quite a bit, actually, about the benefits of that. So start working on that, get used to eating more fiber, which is recommended in this, to do it slowly. If you, a lot of fiber may create some, gas or those kinds of things. And so starting slowly and working your way up makes sense. And we talk about that in here. So starting with that, and while you're doing phase 1 of the diabetes solution kit is okay too, I think. We have a lot of people on here talking about fiber greens, which is another way to get fiber, but still Dr. Saunders would still tell you get it through your food before you do the supplements. So I saw a question I want to quick ask you, Roy. 5 or 6 years ago, I had a test of the blood vessels in my neck and they were significantly blocked. He put me on niacin 1500 and recently I was tested again and it had cleared up almost entirely. Niacin is getting harder to find. Has the science changed since then? Or what should I do for maintenance of keeping my blood vessels clear and clean?
Oh, great. Okay. So we're going to talk about that. And that's one of the recommendations. Niacin is something that changes the cholesterol from the LDL bad cholesterol, which is really bad, but we call it that just to distinguish between HDL, the good cholesterol. So it changes your ratio and gives you more HDL, which is where the blood is taking the cholesterol deposits out of the arteries and other areas of the body. So yeah, niacin is good. Niacinamide doesn't do that. It's niacin. And so what happened was there was some types of niacin that were slow acting or extended release or non-flush niacin, because when people are taking a high dose of niacin, they release histamine, and so they get hot and prickly heat from histamine. And histamine in terms of like allergies. So when people get an allergic reaction, they get histamine, they get welts all over their body and runny nose and all that. So niacin causes that release of histamine. Some people like it. Some people like the heat. I've had patients say, "Oh yeah, I love the high dose niacin." Anyway, so those long-acting ones and the ones that were no flush niacin were causing liver problems, and they damaged the liver, and so that's why they're getting hard to find. But you can get the immediate release niacin, and if you don't mind the flush, it still works, and it's still good, and you'll see a change in the higher HDL to LDL ratio, and that will and it still helps.
I see a question here. Allison is asking if there is a cure for a heart murmur. What is a heart murmur, and how do you deal with it?
Okay. Heart murmur means a noise that the heart makes. And sometimes they're perfectly benign, just like whoosh, 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 whoosh. Every time the heart beats, it makes a whooshing sound. And so the doctor listens with a stethoscope. Oh, you have a murmur. Sometimes it's a problem. Sometimes it's just a noise. So in what cases might it be a problem? Well, if the valve is leaking. So the reason the whooshing noise is the valve closes, but closes too far and it leaks out. So every time the heart beats, it goes, and you can hear the blood going through that leaky valve. That's one reason, and that's sometimes a problem. Back when they first started doing ultrasounds, and they found a lot of people had mitral valve prolapse, and it would cause a heart murmur. And so at first, like people that had that, they would have the test, and then they couldn't get the good rates for life insurance, because as the life insurance company's like, oh, you have a heart murmur, you have a heart problem, so therefore you don't get the preferred rate. But now, after a long time of doing these ultrasounds, they go, well, pretty much everybody's got a little bit of leaking from the mitral valve. So you can still get the preferred rate now. But at first they wouldn't, because they were worried about it. But now they know it's that's kind of an almost normal thing. Bad leaky valves, if there's a lot of leaking where the heart pumps and some of it's going out the aorta, the other half is going out back into the lungs, then you get extra lung pressure, your heart dilates, and that is a problem. So that kind of a murmur would be a problem. The other kind of a murmur is called stenosis, and that's usually like the aorta. The heart beats, But the aorta, instead of being about an inch or so, a little more, it'll be, or almost 2 inches. It'll be narrowed, and so the blood going through it makes a whooshing sound as the heart beats to pump through there. And that can be a problem too if there's a stenosis of the valve. And in those cases, what you need to know is really simple. Now we have an echocardiogram, which is an ultrasound of the heart, and they can look at each one of your valves and look at to see how they're functioning, whether they're, and what the cause of the murmur is. So that's a good question. And so first thing to do is look up the cause of the murmur.
Very interesting.
I think my mom had stenosis, so then she had a pig valve placed in her heart as a result.
Oh,
we found it. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna again just remind you guys, bartonwebinar.com. Dr. Saunders had someone who popped in there. Bartonwebinar.com again is the hub where you can find all the information about these webinars, about our products, etc. Okay, so that's your hub to lead you to all the places, including our YouTube channel. And I know he'll probably have to leave here in a second to see patients, but is he back on? Oh,
yeah,
no.
he's there.
Oh, he's on mute. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
Cheryl was saying something.
No, I was saying, I think my mom had a heart murmur, then she had stenosis of her atrial valve, so then she had a pig replacement. Is that basically how it goes? If that's what happens when your atrial valve is narrowing?
Yeah. If the mitral valve is narrowing, sometimes you have to have a replacement of the valve, and that might require a pig valve or a mechanical valve.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Okay, we're going to do a couple more questions here, guys. We're going to run out of time, but these are such good questions. Ruth says, I just have a calcified mitral valve, no clogged arteries, etc. They think I had rheumatic fever as a child. It is too dangerous to operate. Is there anything to help clear up the calcification? Fasting doesn't work as I just came down with asthma as a result of COVID shots. I'm 85 and I've never had asthma before.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a lot there, but let's just deal with that one, the calcification, because yeah, that could be an important thing. And yes, there is a way to remove the calcifications by removing inflammation. So first of all, you remove inflammation. And then second of all, vitamin K2 has been shown to remove calcium deposits out of soft tissues and put it into your bones. So, so instead of having a little bit of K2, you would take what's called a pharmacologic dose of K2. And we'll have a whole seminar, a whole webinar on this, just this one topic on how to remove calcium deposits from the arteries, because I've run into this quite a bit. And I used to do chelation treatments, IV, ETA chelation treatments to remove calcium. And that's been somewhat successful, but this way over a longer period of time is more useful.
Okay, Kathy says, 2 years ago, I became hypertensive after taking the COVID vaccine and was hospitalized, and docs put me on amlodipine and metoprolol. Been on this regimen for 2 years and got fed up with the doc because I didn't feel good. Went cold turkey with the drugs, and now after 55 days, I'm still alive. Been investigating foods that create low blood pressure. Let's see, her average is 123/70. I know I need to exercise. I'm 73 years old. What else can I do? I've been on the diabetic webinar and I have succeeded, and I am not pre-diabetic anymore.
Woohoo! Good for you. Wow. Okay, so those are great questions, and those are things that we should have whole webinars based on, like each one of those questions. What about high blood pressure? And when you're 73, what should your blood pressure be? And I'm going to tell you something that they only know at Harvard, where they did the research and refused to publish it. And that is, your blood pressure should be 150/90 if you're over 60 years old.
What?
And I'll prove that to you, and I'll show you all the research on that when we do that webinar. So, and the fact that you're taking the blood pressure medication and you're feeling bad, that's important. That means you're getting hypotensive, low blood pressure, and you're not getting circulation to your body the way you should be. You have to be really careful about high blood pressure medication. And so we're going to do multiple seminars on high blood pressure, or webinars on high blood pressure medication, because it's a big deal. And we've been told for so long that we're up to like 2 generations of people who have been told it's the silent killer. And your blood pressure, oh, that's bad. Blood pressure is bad. And it just may not be that. That might not quite be right for everyone. And so we're going to have multiple webinars on that.
Oh, this is good.
Would you also have a webinar on COVID vaccines? Because we just had 2 questions on COVID vaccines.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even know if we can. That's the truth. I don't know that we can anymore, because we keep getting them shut down anytime we mention that.
I didn't say anything about that.
No, and it's okay. We can edit this, but I'm just going to let you guys know that that's the truth of it. They shut us down if we even mention it. So they take our videos off of YouTube.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to know, but we could. I will just show the research on what, like Harvard did research on cardiomyopathy due to the vaccine. So when we talk about cardiomyopathy, we can talk about the vaccine.
Okay, that's good. Okay, and then one more question. I just want to ask this because Carol had asked, I have Bloom syndrome, which I'm not familiar with, and we all have diabetes. How do we proceed?
You have what syndrome?
Bloom. It says Bloom. BLOOM.
I've heard of it. I don't know the details of it. I'd have to look it up. Bloom syndrome. And yeah, everybody in the family has it. Oh, that'd be great. Okay. So we're going to have to answer that like next time.
Okay.
Come back.
All right. This is so good. Okay. Dr. Saunders, you go be with your patients. Come back. We'll be here next week. We're so thankful for you. So thank you. Cheryl and I will try to go through some of these. We probably could have Googled Bloom syndrome, but that's okay.
I will.
I think a lot of these are going to be a little bit more medical type focus that we'll have to have Dr. Saunders answer.
Bloom syndrome affects many different body systems and is characterized by slow growth, sun sensitivity, and an increased risk of cancer. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next week, we'll talk about that.
Okay. I'm going to write that down actually. Also, someone had asked, they really wanted to have Dr. Saunders for a doctor. And I don't know what his options are for that, but I'm just going to direct you to his office. So let me find that number. I usually have it saved somewhere. Here it is. I'm going to post that actually in the chat. And in case you don't see it, it's 805-688-7171. And I think you need to be local to him in order for him to work with you. But
and that's the Santa Barbara area, Santa Barbara, California. You could visit.
Another option, he recommends this a lot. He'll say, find a functional medicine doctor in your area. That's where he would start, or that's what he would recommend. So you can just Google someone. Usually they are most like him.
Someone asks, do you like chia seeds as fiber? I think that's a good source of fiber, chia seeds. I hear a ton about chia seeds, overnight chia seeds, kind of like you treat overnight oats. You put them in coconut milk, other kind of milk, and then maybe add just like a tablespoon of maple syrup for flavoring, or any of like a vanilla or something like that. And that's a great source of fiber. I have a friend who just puts a tablespoon or 2 in water, lets it sit for a while, and then drink it.
Oh,
so
interesting.
That's a good source of fiber.
I was going to tell you too, I think it was posted in here. I think there were high fiber foods that were listed in this book. And I think that was on the list, and it told you exactly how much fiber was in them. Well, it's somewhere in here. One other thing that I really loved in the Healthy Heart Solution Kit is there is, toward the front, there's a whole section on vocabulary that you should know. And it's all of the things that you hear that you maybe aren't sure what they've meant. They're in here. I mean, concerning heart and health, eating healthy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And like what kind of tests what kind of tests doctors talk about, or if you're worried you have heart disease, what kind of tests you want to ask your doctor for. It's all in there.
Yeah. It's seriously, guys, this is just done so well. I wasn't a part of creating this actually. And so I'm super like, wow, this is amazing. We need to get this in the hands of everyone. So you can go to Barton Nutrition. I think that's probably the best place to go to look for this.
I don't know if you can buy that at Barton Nutrition.
Oh, really?
I think it's just our supplements on Barton Nutrition. So it's bartonpublishing.com.
That is there.
Purchase any of our printed options or give us a call. 888-356-1146 is our customer service line, and you can order anything. Tell them Cheryl sent you. Maybe they'll give you a discount.
Ooh, there you go. I want to look here now. So Barton Nutrition again is the site for the supplements. God, I hope it isn't there. That's very interesting.
No, just our Prins is on Barton Publishing.
Okay.
Supplements only on Barton Nutrition at this moment.
I'm going to check Barton Webinar because we did add some stuff to that. And I said that was going to be like the hub to find everything. So let's hope that the solution kit is there.
Judy asked for that number again. It's 888-356-1146.
BartonWebinar.com. You will find the diabetes solution kit, the healthy heart solution kit, and home cures that work. And so there's your hub. That's going to be the place to go. Use code webinar25 to save 25%. Okay,
but use it once, so buy everything you want at one time,
and you might be able to use it again though.
Oh, you might be able to. I thought it was only one.
I don't know. I don't know that for sure. Yeah, get what you need right away, and then you can find out. Roy said Flushing, been there, and I got the t-shirt and did that.
Roy also says I like my fiber greens. I want to try the iced tea lemonade that Joe mentioned yesterday. So if I had to choose between fiber greens and iced tea lemonade, I would choose iced tea lemonade any day. To me,
over the green apple, you mean?
Yes, it's my favorite.
That's awesome.
You like the fiber? You like the green apple?
I like them both. I don't know. I like to have options. So in case you're not familiar with what we're talking about, Fiber Greens is one of our newer products. Actually, you know what? I need to change this view here real quick. There we go. So here you go. And you mix a scoop of this with water. It works best like actually this one isn't open with, you can do it in a shaker cup with like ice, or I have a frother that I use just to mix it and then drink it right away. Someone on the webinar yesterday said, sometimes it gets thick. Don't let it sit. Don't let it sit for a half hour and then come back and drink it because you're not going to enjoy it.
No, that's the psyllium husk, which is the bonding agent, which will work inside of you to make thick and basically pull things out. So you want it to be thick, but yet don't wait. So one of our emails we sent out used to give a ice cream recipe. So a lot of people were making it, putting it in the freezer, and then eating it as ice cream. A lot of people love that. So do the same thing, maybe double it, put it in the freezer, let it sit, and then eat it as ice cream.
What? So you're just mixing it with water, doing it normal. You're just freezing it.
Yep. And just freezing.
How do I not know about this?
I don't know.
What? Oh man. Now I'm going to try that. That'll be a good way for my kids to have it too. One other fun thing about this is that, so carbs is 5.5, but fiber is 4.7. So if you aren't familiar with how to figure out how many carbs are in something, those of you doing the diabetes solution kit, you know this, but you take your carbs minus the fiber, and that tells you how many net carbs. So that's a good amount of fiber in this. And so it can be enjoyed on a low carb diet, and it's obviously fiber is good for your health. So we love it. That's fun. I think everyone on the team really enjoys this product a lot, but I will tell you too, if you're new, Dr. Saunders will tell you, he wants you to get your nutrients from food. Supplements will not be the thing that changes your health. It helps. It's the helper. The solution kits are where the answers are. All right. Okay, guys, I think that's going to be it for us today. This was so fun. And we'll be back next week, same time, same place. So invite a friend. And I think that's it. Anything else, Cheryl?
Nope. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Awesome. Bye, you guys. God bless.
Bye.